Good morning. Welcome. It is Friday. I'm so glad to see you. And because it's Friday, you know what that means. I definitely have my compadre on this morning. Welcome, Mr. Steve. Thank you for being here.
Glad to be here on this early Friday morning.
I know.
Early-ish.
Yeah, it is.
Early-ish, that's all.
Hey, so if you're new here, you've never been here, we go live Monday through Friday. We talk about tips, tools, techniques, inspiration, motivation, and those things that are going to provide us with thrivability over time, over our life. And so today, what's interesting is I usually have a banner. Right now I have this right here. Boom, let's go like that. Hey, there we are. We're the Coffee Break Show. And if you're new here, put your name down below. We want you to be part of the conversation. And, I'm looking at over here and I'm going to pop this up and see what we did. Okay, join us today as we talk about what's happening in the world. And I do want to talk about that today. We have so much that's going to be going on. And if you're one of the lovely people who are a fan of this show and you're here with us every week, thank you for being here. We enjoy having you on. We enjoy having the conversation. I had a topic come up today. Ooh. And somebody wrote on my Facebook page, they're like, if you can't pay a living wage, you don't deserve to be in business. You're asking people to work for less money than, and it's the living wage discussion. And I just want to talk about that today. Good morning, because I think there is an entire blaming people for not having a living wage. Mm-hmm. And what do I mean by that? I mean that when you go apply for a job is offered to you. It's not forced upon you. You don't have to take that job. And if you are literally coffee with heavy cream in hand, I'm so jealous, but I just want that coffee with, heavy cream in hand. I love that. Hey, Donnie, Agua. Welcome. I'm so glad to see you. Agua. That's right. Water for the reporter. Good morning. So glad to see you. So if you get to the point where you're watching this show, I want to talk about a living wage, especially for those people who live in the United States who are screaming about not having a living wage. You get offered a job. You accept the job. Your wage is negotiated during the contract. It's a contract between you and your employer. Nobody is holding a gun to you and saying, take that wage, take that wage. You accept everything. You accept everything. And I know because I made this mistake before. I've done it myself. I've gone in and accepted unlivable wages. And do you know what's interesting about that is that as long as you continue to give your power away and accept the fact that you have chosen this contract, you chose to say yes, you chose the negotiation, you chose to accept the wage they offered you. You choose to accept every single aspect of your job and what you earn or do. Now, I know that there are 18-year-olds that make millions of dollars right now, but they don't accept wages. They don't accept that. They accept making their own wage or prosperity for themselves. They start an online business. They don't let other people determine what their living wage is. And that's the opportunity that's still here in America. There are people who are 18, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, some starting at 70 and still become millionaires. And if they don't, they still determine how much they want to make. They're like, I make $100,000 a year and I'm happy with that. I don't need a lot of money. I just need a lot of freedom. And what happens is the second you get into the living wage conversation, you have given your power away to somebody else and said, I can't make money until you give me more money to make. Mm-hmm. And that's a lie. It's not true. Every time you bite for that. So what I did when I learned that was I thought, okay, I can be a wage earner or a business owner. Well, business owners make more money. Doesn't it make sense to put your 40 hours here or your 50 hours or 60 hours instead of working for someone else? Trust me, when you start becoming your own wage earner, you have way more possibility than waiting for somebody else.
And then it becomes an issue of how big do you get before you need help. Mm-hmm. And then when you need help, is that first employee your spouse?
Sometimes that happens. I know for me it did.
And that way, then you can control the expenses of having to pay that living wage.
Yeah.
Otherwise, once you get to the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth employees, in many ways, those are the most expensive employees you'll ever have until you get larger and larger. So there's this. I almost want to say inflexible flexibility is how you grow, and that was something you talked about on Wednesday. When you, what point do you need a platform to sell your stuff, to sell your services? So, and I think there's a difference between selling services versus selling materials.
Yeah.
When you sell a hard good, we've done that. It's a
Yeah.
more difficult business, and it would have been. We tried to bring on a second person or a third person to do some of these other things, and it would have been difficult to have paid whatever a living wage is, and that is in some ways dynamic depending on where you find yourself. It's more expensive to do it in a metro area than it is rural. It's more expensive to do it in Seattle versus Birmingham, Alabama, not
Yeah.
England. So it's not a set wage. Like McDonald's, as soon as they had to pay $15 an hour, they're like, the heck with that. We've got robots.
That's
And we'll
right.
do one big capital expense, and then it's a maintenance thing. So
And that point you just made about the robots and the robotics and the software, that one point is why the worker is dying.
yeah.
The future isn't made for the human worker. It's made for the robotic worker. It's made for the worker that doesn't even speak and works 24 hours a day.
And it doesn't call in, but when it does call in, one of the discussions that's been surrounding cryptocurrencies is paying AI, paying these robotic workers for their work. They're still going to need maintenance. They will still have down days. So it's like leasing an aircraft. You lease the engines as well, and then there's a dollar cost that goes into maintaining those engines. So these businesses that end up going with robotic workers will have to continue to pay them as simply a reserve to deal with maintenance. It's not that different than humans. It's just a different scale, a
Yeah, it's
different
like
reliability.
all your tech jobs, all your call-in jobs, they're all going to be taken by AI. They're going to be leaving India or wherever. It's all going to be done by AI. And these jobs right now, it's like, you want me to work for you and you won't even pay me this, or you won't even do this for me. You know what? Get a grip on your life right now. You're still there. If you don't like what you're getting paid, leave,
There's another
go,
job. There's another
quit,
job for
go
you. Yeah.
someplace else and stop blaming your employer for your life.
Yep. Yep.
Like, get up and be the employer. If you're so really worried about your wage, go create the company that's going to pay everyone a living wage, whatever that would be. And then it's like you'll learn very quickly that the living wage is being completely slaughtered. I know this place. I started the living wage. It's interesting. When I was in college, I used to work for McDonald's. And one of the things that was McDonald's, they're not the
Wendy's.
living wage. Yeah, Wendy's. It was back
Wendy's.
in the day. It was the place where there was no robotics back then. It was
Oh no.
definitely people run. Everything was people run and then was doing it. I always gave more to my employer, always gave more to my employer than I got because I just thought it was fair. But one thing about McDonald's that I really liked back in the day, and the reason I stayed with them, is that they had profit sharing programs. And the how well the store did, everybody got a piece of profit. So you had a wage, which was minimum then or
Yeah.
slightly above that.
$3.35 an hour.
They fed me twice a day for free. When I came on, I got to eat. When I left, I got to eat. So in college, you know how you had macaroni, cheese, and ramen all the time? Well, the only
Burritos.
way out of that is burgers where you work from. So
Yeah.
that was always a great thing. And then there was profit sharing at the end of it. And profit sharing was a pile of profits. Like, let's say, 10% of all profits went into this profit sharing piece. And you vested over time into that thing. So you got a portion of the profits.
Yep.
And I got a big fat check when I was done. There's ways that you can make things, notable, but let's make it everybody wins, not just the employer has to pay you more because he's the guy that makes all the money and screws you over and this and that. That doesn't happen. You accept the terms to the agreement. What you don't have is
Negotiating.
negotiating
Yeah,
skill.
you don't at that price point. You just don't, because there's such a stable of workers who are in, well, like you. It was in college. I'd come back. I had to drop out that second semester of my freshman year and just kind of get my life, rejiggered. And Wendy's was that bridge. It was enough to to have food, to have a little money in the back pocket until I could find that other job that didn't require a vest and me going home smelling like the grill. And
Yeah.
that ended up being the city library. And I was happier there. The bosses were better. The workspace was better. It was just a different environment. And I was, at Wendy's for 5 months, and then I was at the library until I left school. And then I got the job at the TV station. So that was back to
You
libraries.
accept the terms of what you go.
Yeah.
There's a scene in the movie Jerry Maguire that I really like. And it's when Tom Cruise gets the offer from the Arizona team, and he looks at it and he's like, "Oh, this sucks. This really sucks." And he's like, "What is it?" And he reads the offer to Cuba Gooding Jr., who's like, "Oh my gosh, okay, okay." And he's really upset because he's just like, "If you tell me we eat lima beans, and we eat lima beans." And Regina King comes in and she's like, "What?" And she takes her husband and she moves the face like this and she goes, "You are a splendid black man, and you and I, we determine our worth. We determine our worth. Nobody else does that." And that's where people have to get to the point where they realize that they determine their worth. And I want to talk about this. Donnie's got a really good thing up here. I want to talk about this because this is true too. The living wages vary throughout the world. I believe that's why VAs from other countries work so well. Their living wage and cost of living is much less than here in the US, but as food shortages and the global economy goes bust, it may not be as effective. And I agree with that too. The part of outsourcing our work is that we get, master degree people coming in whose
Cost of living.
monetary system, the
Yeah.
exchange of their currency, I can pay, $6, $7, $8 an hour, and it's like $80 an hour over there to them. My point is, no matter what you do, but especially in the land of opportunity, and I'm talking every Western country and even non-Western societies, as long as there's an internet, you can start a business online and bootstrap it into having money come in. You don't need to have a product. You don't need to know how to do HTML. You don't need to know how to do tons of things. They have made it so easy. You can get a free website. You can get a free product offers. You can get things started off the ground so that you're making your own money.
And then it comes to
The
marketing.
future,
Then it
yes.
comes to marketing. Then you've got to
You
sell yourself. And you've got to believe in yourself enough first to say, I can leave this pool that I've been in where I've been an employee, and then believe in yourself. And then you, as you were talking about yesterday, become that champion. And that's when you're fully invested in yourself. And if I were to go back 20 years, maybe even 25 years at a certain inflection points in my career, it might have been something that I would have done, is strike out on your own. And then you sink or swim based on your own actions, not on
and your own
politics inside
attitude.
of a newsroom or
Yes.
somewhere else, because that's the part of the thing about working for someone else, is that you're going into their work environment. And sometimes it's uplifting, it's positive, it's reinforcing, it's a growth place. And other times it's simply toxic. And there's a high turnover, and you don't know that on the interview. You might get hints of that, but until you're there and in the day-to-day grind, and if you discover that it's toxic, that your boss is a beautiful person in the interview, then you're like, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? But now you're contractually bound. You're bound to serve that time. So this is, I wish I'd gone out on my own much, much sooner than I did.
Yeah, there's always a point. I'm glad I went through what I did because one of the things I found out was I am not a backstabbing person. I cannot do
No.
corporate politics. I'm very, very honest. And there are people who will lie, who will do crazy stuff. It's crazy. And I think it's crazier in that world than it is to be an entrepreneur. Now, does everything go perfect when you're an entrepreneur? No. I've had people embezzle from me or steal from me. I've had people manipulate me. I've had people say lies. I've been through all these things. I would rather be in the seat of power than be in the seat of being, underneath someone's thumb. And in this country, in this world, if you have a company that can employ people, even just one worker, most countries will accept you. They'll say, yes, you can be in our country. Yes, if you can provide jobs, come to our country. Yep. It's like one of the most powerful things you can do for yourself is learn to run a business right now. Don't wait another second. Don't go right now. And it's free. There's so much online about how to start the business. There's so much, you can read a book or do it. There's no excuse not to take a living wage or not to have a living wage.
Yeah, there were books 20 years ago, and you had to program. You had to create that storefront for yourself. You had to create the own marketing materials. It's a different game than it is right now than it was then. And you talked about living under the thumb of someone else, and that could just as easily be turned around to where they support you in your actions, in your dreams, in your aspirations, in your suggestions
I've had those
for
employers.
The company. Yeah, and those kinds of places value you. They value your work because you bring more value to the table than what they can provide you in a salary. Mm-hmm. And that's where they're just grateful to have you show up every day and do your best. And even in those weeks or months where you're going through stuff, they will stand by you because they know that there's a rainbow on the other side of this personal storm that you're usually going through, whether it's health, whether it's a relationship, and that is the other part of being a part of a great organization. And they're absolutely out there. But as we mentioned, the economy is going through struggles. And so these larger companies that could do that budgetarily, human resources wise, smaller and smaller and smaller. So more people are going to be cut free. And you cut free with a life vest or a lifeboat or a ship of your own.
Yeah.
And that's what's coming.
I love the way you said that, life vest, lifeboat, or ship of your own. And that's something you got to learn now. Wow, Scott, you're bringing up a lot of points: toxic environment, peers, aligning expectations, contractual agreements, all topics of their own show episodes. I agree with that.
And we've been there. Each of us has been in every one of these situations. And long before circumstances, and I have to say it's divine. I mean, every job I lost or left was at the perfect time. At the time, it's crisis. It's crisis because you're not necessarily prepared. I wasn't to walk on my own for a period of weeks or months until that next job came along. And so it was a learning experience. What do you value? What do you want to carry forward? And I would do things a little bit differently now. But I can't look back and say
hindsight's always 20/20. And I think there's a point where many of the college people that go to college have in their mind what their parents have told them, which is decimated. It's not here anymore. And I'm sorry about that. When you get to the point where your parents went to college, like when we went to college, there were job offers at college that had living wages that were around your degree. I got a degree in accounting. I didn't get a tech degree. I had an accounting and finance minor. And right away, job offers were there. It was a very different life. And the starting salaries were livable. They were, because you didn't have much. You were lucky. Yeah. Well, I picked the right degree, and thank you, Mom and Dad, for that advice. I don't like accounting, but I fell back on it a couple of times before my entrepreneurial wave went. And what happens now is the future isn't about the worker. It's about the entrepreneur. And when we talked yesterday about the seas parting, being left behind, those people that are still touting about how there should be jobs like we did in the past. We had, strikes, and we had, union workers and things like that. Those things are dying. Yeah. But the truth is, the true patriot that got off the boat, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, they had no support but each other. They grew their farms, built their homes, did everything without companies around to lift them up. And we are going back to the point where self-reliance, self-sufficiency, self-made income, those things are coming back as we see things shrink. And what's going to happen is, I think we're going to see a bit of the business owner, the mom and pop store coming back. We see a lot of big companies right now toppling. They're going to need more bailouts. The bailouts are coming. And that person who creates their own income, that creates their own food, that creates their own resilience is going to ride out this next storm a little easier than the worker.
And
just I'm a worker.
And an
yes,
attitude.
The attitude adjustment.
To go with what's coming. It will be a big, big part of whether you see opportunity or you see crisis and chaos. That is huge, and I don't know whether you can put a proper emphasis on how important that is. And you go back to those ships sailing from Europe to the New World, and you brought trades. You brought tradesmen with you. So you had someone who could sew, who could be a tailor, who could do shoes, who a smith, whether it was ironworks or metallurgy, or a veterinarian to deal with horses. You brought skills with you. And when one of them didn't make the trip or didn't survive that first winter, and many did, there had to be the apprentices on board to come along and pick up that slack. And so you had to have that stable of talent. And what we're going through is a situation where most Americans have been brought up, raised, trained, conditioned, educated inside the services industry and not the trade industry. And that's our weak spot right now.
We really have that weak spot.
Those trades are overseas.
Yeah.
And to bring that
bring them
talent
back
in,
will give you a living wage, and they're still solopreneur jobs. Donnie, you're just really great here. Yes, there are wonderful people out there. When I worked for a surgeon in my youth, he offered to pay my higher education to become a doctor. Instead, I went overseas. I want to tell you something as well. The guy that I worked with for the McDonald's, he had 13 stores that he did. And every semester that I went to college, he offered us a $500 scholarship. And of course, he was interviewed for the TV, and he said, I worked at the store that was by CU Boulder in Boulder campus, because that's where I went in Colorado, CU Boulder. And that store was the only fast food restaurant at the time that was there. And if you go there now, there's several of them. But when they interviewed them at that store, he said, why do you give them, $500 scholarships? We had to meet certain grades and fill out forms and things like that. But we got a $500 scholarship every single semester. So that was $2,000 a year. When he did that, he said to the news people, you're either going to invest in them right now or you're going to pay for them forever.
Yep.
And I really thought about that. And I want to thank you, Bob Charles, for creating that opportunity for me. He was a great mentor. He was the guy that invented the Happy Meal, so he was a super smart man, and he had philosophies. He used to, when we come in, he'd always call us Chief. Hey, Chief, what are you doing? Hey, Chief, he just,
Chief of your position.
He was very, really, really good at putting a sense of responsibility, and you wanted to work with him in that. He was very empowering. He was a very, very good leader. Very good.
What a great attitude.
He did. And he instilled in us. He used to say it every day. If you're green, you're growing. You're ripe, you're rotting. And he would quote Ray, because him and Ray were friends. This was back when Ray was alive. He was alive. Yeah. But the guy was amazing. He was an amazing mentor, amazing teacher, amazing leader. And they can still be there. And I think Donnie brings it up really well. He said, where'd it go? Where'd his quote go? Donnie and those guys. Well, yes, there are wonderful people out there. When I worked for a surgeon in my youth, he offered to pay for my higher education to become a doctor. Instead, I went overseas. I mean, he still made the choice, but the choice was there. So this argument about a living wage, here's what I want to say to people. Sometimes propaganda is made to go out there and poke the beast. Poke a fake beast that's not there, to poke a lie, to get you involved in a lie that you think is righteous and purposeful. It's disinformation. It's disinformation. America is going through a hard time. I get it. We're a little bit divided. I get it. I get that we have some tumultuous uncertainty and civil unrest, and there are reasons out there. But I will tell you this: this is still the greatest land to open a business in and start a business. It is still the land of opportunity. We still have entrepreneurs here who are making things that help people lift themselves off the ground. There are platforms and there are all kinds of technologies. There's applications. There are entrepreneurs around here that you don't see all the entrepreneurs. There's not like the entrepreneur show. Tell us what your next big thing is. What are you doing? And being able to do that. But everything about this country still has opportunity. And it's your choosing. And if you believe the poking the bear story and you're reacting to it, you cannot see. You can only see this. You can't see the opportunity side. You have to go into neutral, take your drive thing and put yourself in neutral and say, wait a minute, what's the opportunity for me? Don't let them poke the bear and tell you what you should be upset about.
And that's the challenge right now, is what opportunities reside out there, what systems, what supply chains, what opportunities, what financial system, what regulations will be in place in 3 months, 6 months, 2 years. And that's a really, really murky bridge that it's, in my eyes, is very difficult to even venture from the safety of whatever precipice you're upon, because we're all on the edge of something. But where does that bridge take us? How close do we have to get to the other side before you realize that, oh crap, it's a wasteland, or it's Emerald City from the Wizard of Oz.
That's right.
We don't know. We really, really don't know. And in that, as we've talked about before, in that is an opportunity. And I see having, as you've said before, if there's a team with you, then regardless of what is on the other side, there is a set of skill sets to make a meal when you get there.
That's right. It's the skill sets of the team that get you there. I feel like there are some people who want you to vilify wealthy people, to vilify company creators. So I know there is some people who create, let's
There's an
say,
appetite for that. There's absolutely an appetite for that right now.
There really is. There's vilifying everything. If we stop vilifying, and let's just take a look at one thing. Let's say online video games. The online video game is very interesting. I think it's a smart business. You create this video game that enthralls everybody, and you pay a monthly subscription fee online to pay that, to play that game. And people are in love with that game, and they keep playing that game for years and years and years. They're paying that $15 a month, $10 a month, whatever it is per month for that subscription. How big does the game player get before we start looking at it and saying, oh, there's too many people here, or, oh, you're screwing everybody over, or we don't. We just let the growth of that video game and everything else. Does the guy deserve to make as much money as he can because he made the video game? That's not the question. The question isn't who deserves or who doesn't. It's, when do you say no to the people interacting? He's servicing a group of people to enjoy and have entertainment. It can get as big as it wants to get. He actually can make as much money as he wants. It's the same with Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos started in his garage. He took used books and he built this mammoth thing. But when does he say, oh, I'm too big? All you people, you can't use Amazon. I'm too big right now. That you can't do that. As long as the people are enjoying it, using it, and it's part of their world, and he continues to grow it, and they get to choose. If they can choose Walmart, they can choose Amazon, they can choose pennies online, they can choose a private anything. They can choose where they're going to place their money.
So the whole discussion of monopoly has morphed in the last 20 years, because if you look at monopoly versus, say, an Amazon or a Microsoft, they both have web services. They both have developed,
a video game that you pay for per month.
Exactly. Whereas, say, Standard Oil founded in 1871, but then broken up in like 1911 or 1921, somewhere in there. They had
Somewhere.
41 years where they built their monopoly.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm certain, because it was Rockefellers and the family that they are, it was
right.
ruthless. Absolutely and utterly ruthless control of that entire market. That kept Tesla out of the whole game from distributing free electricity. So this is where the monopoly, and when is too big, is when it inhibits others from evolving that business model. If you could go out like Facebook and then buy Instagram, and people think they're leaving Facebook and then going and talking about Instagram, but no, there is still this umbrella like Standard Oil. It's all, and in some ways it's beyond me, because I don't know how everything's connected. We just know that there's somebody out there pulling the strings for all of these. And both Democrats and the Republicans are looking at when is too big. When do they have pricing control? When do they?
Yeah, and they'll just leave. It doesn't matter. Governments don't have rule over any of these things. It's like that video game. That video game is global. People are paying per month globally to play that online subscription game. And that's the people's choice. Yeah, that's right. That's the people's choice to continue that model of playing. Well, it's the same. Amazon doesn't belong to the United States. It definitely belongs to the world. And the world in that place, even if the company is in the United States, it's so vastly everywhere. There's going to be Amazon UK, Amazon India, Amazon Australia, Amazon wherever. And the first thing we're dealing with right now are companies that belong to the world. Like Facebook belongs to the world. And we look at that. eBay belongs to the world. They're not country-centric companies anymore. And that seems to be poking the dragon. We love to vilify the things that we actually want to shop at. I mean, we do the Goodreads or their businesses online, etc. But in the future, when we take a look at the future, everybody is making, good morning, MJ. Nice to see you on. Karen, you finally popped on to say hello. Nice to see you. We get to the point where we are looking at the future, and the future doesn't belong to a country. It belongs to some ether thing. It's like the world. Cryptocurrencies, they don't belong to a country-centric currency is dying. Country-centric things are dying. Coke is everywhere around the world. It's a world beverage. It's not, hi, we drink Coke in the United States. And that's the difference. We're becoming more global in that way. And that country-centricness of how we own something, like this is my video game. It's only open to America, and that's all. No, the subscription is open around the world, and as many people want to play that online game, they play that online game.
At American prices.
That's the beauty. At American prices.
American prices, like
that's
Coca-Cola,
right.
At American prices.
That's right.
Here, where there's a 12-ounce can, you go to Brazil, with a whole different pricing structure, you get an 8 or a 6-ounce can. A 6-ounce can. So there's how companies, U.S. companies denominated in dollars, want to bring those other currencies home, or at least keep the price of the product palatable to that indigenous population.
Donnie says, yes, what we focus our attention on, we become an experience. Yes, that's true. We are responsible for our own creation. Oh, thank you for saying that, Donnie. Thank you. And what surrounds us? Potentials surround us. That's right. Potentials surround us. And we be daring, step out into your creation till the unknown becomes the known. This is the perfect thing. This is that perfect tool today. And when we look at the lies of propaganda, this is the thing that can confuse your potentials. You have to know the difference between propagandas and other things and consciousness and what you want to experience. This is so important. Yeah. What we focus our attention on, we become. So if you focus your potential on somebody is screwing you over, you become the screwed over.
You've accepted it.
Yep. And even if it's that's true. Your experience.
Even if it's true.
Mm-hmm. Even if it's true. We are responsible for our own creation. And that is the toughest thing. You know, Jack Canfield said this, and I remember him saying it. The first time I thought, really? Is it really that? He said, you are 100% responsible for everything in your Life.
Life.
And I thought, oh my gosh, am I responsible for this and this and this and this and this? Yes, you've got to get to the point where you realize that we are responsible for our own creation and what surrounds us. We don't even like to think what surrounds us. So let me ask you this. Are you happy with your creation and what surrounds you? If you're not, then it's time for you to do something different. Potentials surround us, all kinds of potentials surround us. Be daring, step out into your creation till the unknown becomes the known. Thank you. I agree with this. Robin says, I agree that when a monopoly is all consuming and stifles everything else, then that's a monopoly. But it's different when it's country centric versus world.
And that could even be government being the monopoly. Because then it sets regulations and rules about what innovation is allowed to flourish inside the regulatory capture that we've now experienced with so many other businesses. That's a whole other topic, though.
Donnie, I love this. The narrative versus your narrative. And that's the difference. People want to join the narrative and not do the hard work of saying, what is my narrative? And I love this. This is MJ. This is part of my narrative. The world has become a global village. We must grow with it or we'll be left behind. Simple. We're not going back to, we're just not going to go back with technology as it is to what was the past. Some form of the past may go forward with us, but the past doesn't come forward. And this is very true. We are becoming a global village. And I think this is one of the most empowering things to accept. It's like, if you see the earth right now, here's the earth. We in our minds think that we have countries. We don't. That's just, I own this land, we own this land. And what we end up doing when we have that mindset, it's like owning a house. Here's your whole house. There's the bathroom, the bedroom, the kitchens, the everything. You have this gloriously beautiful house, but you get mad at the bathroom. So you bomb the bathroom. You're like, boom, you assholes. I'm going to bomb the bathroom. So what happens later is suddenly you're like, damn, I got to go pee. Well, the bathroom is gone.
Scorched.
So it's like we see that we have a mindset that says this house is, divided into a republic that owns the bathroom and a republic that owns the bedroom and a republic that owns the kitchen and a republic that owns the basement and a republic that owns the great room. And what happens is you don't see this is just simply a house. We have to stop bombing, polluting, beating up, or seeing each other as those Chinese or, oh, those Indians or, oh, those, or oh, those, whatever it is that you see. That ism is the propaganda poking the beast. Yep. The world is actually a global village. And let me tell you something. In India, people care about the well-being of their children and family. In China, people care about the well-being of their children and family. In Canada, people care about the well-being of their children and family. People in India are friendly. People in China are friendly. People in Canada are friendly, but especially Canada. They're very friendly. And the United States as well. They make the propaganda of other countries not being who they are, hoping to keep their country-centric mindset together long-term because it's falling apart. Yep. They created all this debt. They created all this illusion. And when it collapses, we are going to see ourselves for what we really are. And you know what, MJ, you are absolutely right. Life is a series of choices. And here, you are 100% responsible for everything in your life, Jack Canfield.
Yep. And then that way that takes out blaming. And then as you begin to listen to people blaming, then you can see where responsibility is taken or not taken. And living wage versus existing wage was a good comment a little bit back. And we discussed that even different metro areas in the same state, Rochester, New York, or Saratoga Springs, New York versus Manhattan. Totally different, income structures and needs for the workers. It reminds me of Boeing leaving Seattle because of the tax load and the wage demands of Seattle, Metro, and Washington State. Boeing's like, we're done. We've had this incredible 100-plus-year history here, but we're going to South Carolina because we can maintain ourselves or sustain ourselves in these tough times with what's going on. So it's you've got to be dynamic and adjust. Companies do, and we do as well.
Yeah, we have this just like the Unlock Show. Thank you, Tracy. Become a champion, your own champion. This is where we're moving to. And the thing is, you will be left behind if you're not stepping up. We have created a society that is ripe for propaganda and alternative narratives. You got that right. Too tired and too busy to investigate the information. So we just follow the implied narrative. And I think this is what Donnie was talking about it. You really have to get to the point where the narrative versus your narrative. And I want to talk about this a second because I think it is so really, truly important. The narrative versus your narrative. You have to shut the narrative off before you find your narrative. So for example, when you shut the TV off, I'm just going to make this one up. It's not actually mine or Scott's. But what if your narrative said, I need to go find a little house on the prairie and have a garden in the backyard. And I realized that I actually feel like I'd like to be self-reliant. And then ask the question, I wonder what's important to me. What's important to you? Now, here's the thing, and I want you to listen to this very carefully. What's important to you will evolve over time. It will evolve over time. In the beginning, what's important to you is vastly different than what's important to you when you're 50, 60, 40. Those things will evolve, but you will not be able to hear your own narrative if you don't shut the other narrative off.
That's too important to reclaim yourself.
Yeah. And this is the thing. We've created a society that is ripe for propaganda. We've been taught to listen to the propaganda and alternative narratives. We have been creating a society that just follows that. They're too tired and too busy to investigate the information. To me, stop investigating the information and go for what you want. We stop and take our power back when we stop listening to false narratives, both sides, false narratives. So we follow the implied narrative. Don't follow the implied narrative. What's your narrative? What do you want to have in your life? That's the thing you want to focus your attention on and shut that crap off. And this is the thing. It's so important what he's saying, because we have created a society that is ripe. It wants the narrative because the other work, which is actually your narrative, is harder than following this narrative. And I think this is one of the most important points. And I'm assuming this is probably Ryan, because that sounds like a Ryan statement.
It does sound like a Ryan.
It could be Ross, could be, I'm not sure who it is, but that is somebody tell me who that is. That to me is so important. It's Ross. Okay. Of course it's Ross. Yes. So that is such an important society. We just follow the implied. So, I like this. This is called evolution based on economics. We're ready to pivot and adapt if you want to stay in the game of life. Yes, you have to be ready to pivot. But this is the beauty of this potential right now. Scott, it's the beauty is being able to pivot.
Yep, that's our talent. And we're all going to be asked to do that one way or another. There's no way around this thing. The boat, the destiny has already been sailed for. So we will get there. We don't know when we'll get there. We don't even know if there's going to be a sandbar or an iceberg on the way to get there. But we're prepared for it because we'll have the tradesmen. We'll have the stocks in the bottom of the ship. Hopefully we'll have a captain to show the way. Or not. And maybe you are your own captain. And in that regard, you are 100% responsible for what comes down in your life.
Yeah, I want to pop this here. This is really important to me because I agree with part of it. We're beginning to experiencing the relinquishing of personal freedoms. Giving up personal information has made it easier to tweak a pseudo narrative that we
Yep.
think is our own.
Yep.
And I agree with that. I want to stop right here because I realize we are beginning to experience the relinquishing of personal freedoms. Yes, one of them is the freedom to discern. One of them is the freedom to reasonably think. And I think that's really important. And then giving up personal information, yes,
Yep.
to these terms of services. And I will tell you, these terms of services, I think, are dangerous because they're becoming larger than law, larger than, even though you had this right, you signed it over here, they have this contract, they can use your information, sell your information. That's what terms of service are. They're a contract. That's why people are moving to decentralized places. And we will be doing that as well. But when you move from these decentralized platforms, that's the thing that you are saving. When you become an entrepreneur, it's very important right now. It is one of the most patriotic things you can do anywhere in the world, wherever you are. If you have a successful business, you have more freedom than the other people do. It's just full stop.
Yeah, because these platforms have become the controllers of the narrative as private entities using, one could argue, public airwaves. The FCC would regulate television or radio broadcast. That came about around the last depression, 90 years ago. It's interesting that it's always in these economic contractions where we're squeezed a little bit more, and another set of freedoms, another set of opportunities then become regulated. It's just, it's incident after incident after incident. It's giving up freedoms.
Yeah, giving up freedoms in the name of free. That is the thing we're completely distracted by, is that free. I want to say that those are really, really good points. And I just want to say that a living wage is not true. There is no, yes, look at this. Oh, God, this is a big one right here. The Cambridge Analytica is a perfect example. It is the example. It is the quintessential example of that personal freedom being taken away. You are absolutely correct. And the propaganda and the misleading. And since we already know that that exists because we have an example of that, which I think just because there's Cambridge Analytica got busted doesn't mean there's not another one out there. You are,
or three.
you are, your brain, your attention and your focus is at war with the rest of the world. We have to protect your discernment. Your discernment means that you shut everything off so you don't hear these sides. You don't have this, and well, I listen to everything, so I consider. Most people, there is a ton of people who are Republicans and Democrats right now simply because they want to belong, not because they're thinking for themselves. They're in this party and this party because they want to belong to the group they hang out with. And they're so afraid of what other people think, they can't think for themselves. And if you shut these off and think for yourself, you'd find out that you're scared to stand up in the world because of what other people may say about you or being judged.
Confirmation bias is a real thing. I mean, it is. You like to go into that room where everybody thinks alike, and then you can feel good about the decisions you've made and the beliefs you've constructed.
Everybody validates you.
It works. Okay, and then you go home happy. You've got along with everybody. You had a great night out on the town. But then when you go to the real world and you encounter someone else that doesn't think like you, then it becomes an exercise in patience.
What do you do?
Yep.
What do I say? I really want to, I like this. Gang members want to belong. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Reds or blues.
Reds or blues. That's
blue,
right.
Bloods and Crips.
And that's really what we have here. So you want to be able to protect what's going on. So here's what I want to say. I want to go back to there's the narrative and your narrative. I think that's one of the most important statements made in this show. And the narrative is they should pay you a living wage. That's the narrative. What's your narrative? Can I make my own money instead of having to be a wage earner? Can I make as much money as I want instead of accepting what this person is paying me? What do I need to do to learn how to do that?
Yeah.
There you go.
It's an individual answer.
Everybody does that. Well, Scott, I have enjoyed my Friday conversation, and I hope that everybody listening will have the opportunity to challenge themselves, to ask themselves, what's actually important to me and what's my narrative?
Yeah.
And I want to let you know something. No matter what your narrative is, whether you know it or not, like it or not, it's there. You can achieve it. You can unfold it. You have to take your power back in order to do that. I love this. I love this. We have to stop being so gullible. Thank you. Wow, just that one line. We have to stop being so gullible. Be yourself and do your research. Yeah, I love that. We have to stop being so gullible. Yeah, I always know when somebody writes something and they're trying to poke the dragon, it makes me giggle. Oh, you're trying to poke the dragon. Yeah. That's the kind of thing. We have to stop being so gullible. October 17th, I think there's going to be a lot of people that stop being gullible. But that's just, we'll see what happens.
We'll see. We got a great month ahead of us.
Yes, we do. We absolutely do. Yes.
Amazing month.
So, yes, thank you very much for that. The present conundrum is HMI disease is becoming the greatest threat to humanity. How do we hijack and change the direction and re-navigate this addiction to a healthier, higher narrative? Your narrative versus the narrative. That's right. That's it.
Human-machine interface.
Human-machine interface. We have to put it down, and it requires that we get through the boredom of not constantly thinking it or being entertained every second of the day.
Yep.
Like if you can just stay in your space and actually stay in there, people are addicted to being entertained every second of the day. It's just so incredible.
It is. It is. It's as Donnie said, it's a disease. It is the manufacturing of zombieism.
And that's really something that has got to be, you've got to be able to maintain your, I like this. This is even better. Stop feeding the narrative. Stop feeding it. That is, And here, it's not just gullibility. It's Ross. Being gullible and trusting. I know, Ross, you are the bomb.
Ross.
This is it right here. Stop feeding the narrative. That's absolutely it. You have to take your power back. And the issue is that narrative has gotten you to think you have no power. And you have got to take that back. Yes. Thank
Good
you.
Luck. Good luck. We're all going to need it.
Yes, I think so too. Ooh, that would be an infinity. Talk about that. I would like that. I'd be going for that. You got my vote, Ross. All right. Thank you for being with us on the Coffee Break Show, Scott. I always enjoy my Fridays. I look forward to it. I look forward to having you hang out with me and let us have fun. Remember, go take your power back. It's Friday. Start your Monday. I want you to know next week, it is going to be a really super awesome week. First off, Wednesday's guest, we got Joel Young coming on. Now, if you haven't looked up Joel Young, go look him up. He's multi-talented, multi-amazing. He is going to help those people who are sensitive, defensive, stop taking things so personally. He is going to be the guy that lowers stress and gets us back into that zone. This guy is rocking good. Wow. He's rocking fun. And he's a wonderful personal friend of mine, really in my inner circle. I love him to death. I can't wait for you guys to meet him. And this is it from Marie Jo. Have a great week and all, and keep safe and stay healthy. I will see you next week. Mwah! Peace out. Thank you.